Hello, hello, friends. Welcome to this class on how to deal with difficult people at work. So my name is Vanessa for those of you who don't know me, and I am so excited to teach this class today because I think this is one of the most common questions I get from readers, from viewers, from school students, which is, how do I deal with this difficult person I work with? And I realized I couldn't just do a YouTube video on it. I couldn't just write a blog post. I have a very specific framework for dealing with difficult people. I've never seen anyone teach this framework before. And I actually found some science that has never been used in this way before. And it will be a complete game changer for how you view that difficult person. From this day on, you should view that person and communicate with that person completely differently. And the only reason I know that is because I've taught this workshop live before, and that's exactly what my students tell me after the workshop. They've shared with me that they are blown away by the framework, that they could use it right away. So I had to do an entire class on this for you to be able to get across the step-by-step framework, but I can't wait. So I say, let's get started. All right, I'm going to get us sharing here. Here we go. All right. So again, I get this question all the time, and I'm going to give you my framework. And also, for those of you who are here for People School, I know if you're here for People School, I promise at the end of class, I will open up enrollment and do a little info session at the end. That will be a reward after all the teaching. So don't worry, I will also do that as well. The very first thing we have to ask ourselves is, who are your zombies? So I think of difficult people like zombies, and we know this, right? Difficult people, they suck the life out of you. If you've ever watched The Walking Dead or any kind of zombie movie, they're constantly taking and taking, right? They drain you. They ask for too much. They push boundaries. They worry you. So what I want you to do right now is I want you to get specific. So I want you to take out a pen and paper or a notebook, and I want you to write down who your zombies are. Maybe there's one person you're thinking of. Maybe there's three people you're thinking of. I hope it's not more than that, because it's hard to have zombies. And I want you to get really specific. Who drains you? Who takes time from you and energy from you? Who saps up your inbox and calls you all the time? Who asks for too much? Do you have someone in your life who pushes your boundaries a little bit too much? And the last one, this is the most insidious. Who worries you? Is there someone where you get up in the morning and you just, dread seeing them at work? You dread your calls. You see them on your calendar and you're like, oh man, I really don't want to have to talk to them. Or you walk down the hallway at work and you're like, please don't see them. Please don't see them. Please don't see them. Right? The opposite of Dorothy clicking her heels. Who do you worry about? Who are you worried doesn't fully support you? Maybe they are working against you. Maybe they're taking credit for your work. But when you have worry dedicated towards someone, they're the ultimate zombie because they're taking away your mental freedom. And those are the people I really want to address. Now, just for fun, not all zombies are created equal. I have a little zombie identification chart here. And I want you to think about, what kind of zombie do you have on your hands? Do you have a downer? So a downer, these are the really negative people. Everything's wrong. Everything's bad. They're never happy with anything. They're complainers. They're negative Nancy's. They're Debbie Downers. They're the bad apple. They're like, wah, wah, right? They just constantly have that cloud hovering around their head. Are they a downer? Or are they a shirker? Ugh. Shirkers are the ones that just always seem to wiggle out of their fair share of work. You know, they never volunteer to do things. They miss their deadlines. They like to take credit for other people's work, but they don't actually get the work done. They're all talk and no action. They shirk, and they give you a lot of extra responsibility. The third one, this is the most common kind of zombie. In fact, most zombies are some kind of combination of an energy vampire. Energy vampires just take and take and take. I mentioned this a little bit earlier. They just suck the life out of you. It feels like your interactions with them, you leave and you're just like, I'm exhausted. That was exhausting. And this could be a client that's just very demanding. It could be a colleague who's very demanding. They just take a lot of energy. The fourth kind of zombie here, most people don't think about this one. So as a tank is someone who's fine most of the time, but then when they're flipped into anger or they feel challenged, they run everyone over. They're typically really dramatic. They blow up at people. They're angry. They're aggressive. You never know. You're kind of walking around eggshells, right? You never know when they're going to actually just run after you or go after you or blow up. Tanks are scary because they seem all fine on the outside, but they cause you to really tiptoe and walk on eggshells because you never know when they're going to explode at you or run you over. The last one is a one-upper. One-uppers are that kind of zombie where they're a know-it-all. They're always doing something better than you. You know, you say that you had a nice weekend and they're like, well, I had an even better weekend. You say that you know how to cook and they went to a chef school. You say that you went on vacation and they went on a longer one, right? There's always something a little bit bigger and better, and they typically are know-it-alls. They always know a little bit more than you. They never admit that they don't know something or that they're wrong, and they can be exhausting in a logistical kind of way because you're constantly like, yep, we know, you know. So what kind of zombie do you have? I want you to write down in your notebook next to their name if they're a multiple combination of these or just one of these. The reason for that is because I'm going to give you very specific strategies for how to deal with your person. And you have to have a very specific person in mind. That's what makes these really powerful. Now, if we're going to talk about zombies and difficult people, we have to talk about the flip side. So the flip side of difficult people is happy people, being happy at work. So I wanted to talk about this research study. It was done by the Society for Human Resource Management. They wanted to know, by looking at thousands of professionals, what is the single biggest factor for what makes someone happy at work? Now, just guess this for a moment, if you just want to guess this. When I first thought of this, I thought, well, it's probably salary or maybe perks or maybe the company mission or job tasks. They actually found the number one thing that makes people happy at work is their relationship with their coworkers. I find this very surprising. And this is because when you set out to find your dream job, usually you list things like salary and perk and flexibility and mission and job tasks. You very rarely say, and have a really great friendship with all my colleagues, right? That's usually not on the list, but it should be. So your relationship with your coworkers, having difficult people, is incredibly important. I'm so happy you are here in this class because it means that you kind of already know this. You instinctively know that that difficult person is making you less satisfied, less engaged, and less productive. And here's what happens. So if you have really amazing relationships with your coworkers, you feel 100% supported. You walk in to pitch an idea, you do a new project, and you feel like no matter what, you're going to have support from your colleagues. That's an amazing feeling. You can collaborate easier. You enjoy your day. You actually look forward to going into your day. You feel more engaged. You're able to work with your team. And most importantly, you get more done. If you like your relationship with your coworkers, they uphold their work, you do your work, everyone feels appreciated, everyone feels heard. That makes you more productive. The problem is, the opposite of this is if you even have just one difficult person, and you know this, it hurts your productivity. It destroys your happiness. You dread the day. It disables your teamwork. It limits your creativity. On the inside, you're like, they might judge me for that. It slows down your goals and it lowers your engagement. The biggest problem with difficult people at work, why they're different than difficult people that are your friends, is because at work you can't get away from them like zombies, right? You have to find ways to work with them. And so investing in your relationship with your coworkers while you're here right now is amazing. I'm so happy you're here because this is the number one way you're going to become happier at work. Now, here's the thing. You have a choice. There are two ways of approaching difficult people. One is you can make them better. And most people do try to change their difficult person. They want them to get better, them to improve, them to be less of a know-it-all, them to be less of an energy vampire. Or you can make you better. And I want you to try to do both. In fact, I want to teach you a framework for you to help be the best version of yourself and for them to be the best version of themselves. This is my mission in life. For those of you who aren't familiar with my work, I'm the best-selling author of Captivate, The Science of Succeeding with People. I also run the Human Behavior Research Lab, Science of People. And this is my driving goal in life. All I want to do is help you be the best version of yourself. And if I can help you help other people be the best version of themselves, even better. And that is what's underlying this framework. One thing that we're going to have to really change up, a mindset we're going to have to tackle before I teach you the framework, is the golden rule. So you heard of the golden rule. So I grew up hearing the golden rule. My parents always said, what's the golden rule? Treat others as you would treat yourself. Now, I like the golden rule, but I don't love the golden rule. What I actually prefer is something called the platinum rule. So the platinum rule is that you treat others as they would treat themselves. This is a game-changing mindset. The golden rule is kind of limiting. And the reason for this is because if you're viewing others through your lens, you're constantly asking yourself questions like, what would I want to do in that situation? How would I respond? And then inevitably, if someone does something wrong, like a zombie always does something wrong, or they push a boundary, you say to yourself, I never would have done that in situation. I never would have said that. I never would have acted that way. And that's because you're operating from the lens of the golden rule. That's never what you would have done. The problem is that is not how people are wired. People are wired to see through their lens as well, which is different than yours. So it's a much more powerful lens is to think to yourself, how would they treat themselves? What would they say about this situation, this action, this behavior? And here's how we do it. That sounds like, how would you even begin to do that? Here's how. The science and power of personality. So this is one of my favorite sets of research out there. I use it all the time, and it's never been applied to difficult people. And that's what we're going to do today. I'm going to apply the science of personality to difficult people. Now, if you've ever taken a personality quiz or you've read about personality before, there's only one single personality science that's actually based in research. DISC, Enneagram, Myers-Briggs, none of those have been backed up by science. The only personality science that's been backed up by research is called the Big Five, or Ocean. You can see that kind of matrix. So this matrix is something that I created. I have a matrix for every single person in my life, especially my zombies. So your zombies are going to have one of these oceans, and here's how it works. Every single person on this planet, no matter what their gender, their race, their socioeconomic status, all have these 5 basic traits: openness, conscientiousness, extroversion, agreeableness, and neuroticism, also known as Ocean, right? You can see that acronym for Ocean. We all have these 5 traits, and we rank either high, medium, or low on each of these traits. What's important about this is if you know how someone ranks on these traits, you can better understand their behavior, predict their behavior, and fix their behavior. We're not changing them, we're just changing the outcome of their wiring. And when we talk about personality, this is hopefully going to blow your mind. This blew my mind when I saw it. I used to think that personality was a choice or that it was developed. But actually they are finding more and more of our personality is genetic. Personality is not a choice. So much so that they have found that our face indicates aspects of our personality. These are computer renderings of faces, looking at the typical facial characteristics of an extrovert and the typical facial characteristics of an introvert. See the difference here? What they've found is that there's something about our physiology, our chemistry, the way that we're wired, that dictates how extroverted we are, or how organized we are, or how adventurous we are, and that this is not a choice. The reason why this is important is because we get really angry at zombies for being who they are, right? We think they have bad behavior, different behavior, behavior that annoys us. And we have to understand is sometimes they cannot help it. Sometimes they can, but we can actually optimize their behavior based on their wiring. So here's what I want you to do. I want you to pull out your pen and paper, and I want you to draw this matrix on your piece of paper. So draw this matrix, draw a circle. And in the middle of the circle, I want you to write the name of your zombie. Now, if you think your zombie might see your piece of paper, just write zombie A, just a little nickname just in case they see it, right? And then so draw their little name in the middle and then put on the outside of the diode Ocean, O-C-E-A-N. What we're going to do is I'm going to walk through each of the personality traits, and you're going to see where you think your zombie falls on each of the traits. Are they high open, low open, or medium open? Are they high conscientious, low conscientious, or medium conscientious? And as I go through each of the traits, you're going to begin to fill out each part of the matrix until it's completely full. By the way, if you have more than one zombie, you can do this for each of your zombies, right? So each of your zombies should have a different diode. And if you want to, you could even do one for yourself. It's always fun too. All right, are you ready? Let's start. Openness. Openness is how you approach ideas. So very high open people are called explorers. They love experimenting. They love new ideas. They love the unknown. They're tickled by newness. Whereas low open people are called preservers. They like routine and habit and predictability. They like things just so the way they are. They like to do things the same way every day, every single time. You're starting to feel like you maybe know which one your difficult person is at. Here's how you really know if you have a high or low open. Ask your zombie out to lunch. Do they want to go to a brand new place they heard of? Or do they want to go to the same place with the same waitress and order the same meal? That's how you know if someone is high or low open. This is really important because what happens is you can begin to optimize them based on their openness. So I want you to write in that little diode if you think they're high or low open. So put a little arrow next to their letter. And I want you to think about how you can make this person less difficult. I believe you can make people less difficult by optimizing for how they are wired. That's the key to changing a difficult person. It's not changing who they are. It's actually optimizing for who they already are. This also allows you to assume for the best and prepare for the worst. Sometimes zombies who are really, really difficult, you have to be ready for them to get difficult. And this personality matrix is insurance against your difficult people. Here's how. A high open person becomes difficult when they are caged in by routine. If you have a high open person who loves new things, they probably are difficult because they're saying, let's try this new idea. They get off agenda. They're constantly trying new projects. They never finish anything. They're constantly wanting to try something new and they can't just stick to it. When you try to box them in with routine or tradition or habit, they go crazy. They become even more difficult. I'll give you a really interesting example for this. So I was doing this workshop with a company and when I do it live, I have people stand on the matrix. So if they're really high open, they stand on this side of the room. If they're really medium open, they stand in the middle. And if they're really low open, they stand on this side of the room. And so I had everyone fan out so you can kind of look around and see, oh, you're low open, you're high open. And then I also have them look and see their opposites. And I asked each of the people in the room to say, what's one way that you feel boxed in by your personality? And one of the high open, he was so high open, he was basically against the wall. That's how high open he was. He said, I don't require a lot. And this is, by the way, this was at a company that does the same thing every day. They're a very traditional Fortune 500 company. They have the same policies, the same dress code. They have not changed anything in years. So if you're a high open person in that company, you're going to really struggle. And he goes, I know that our company doesn't do a lot of change, but if we could just order from a different caterer for lunch, just once, just a piece of pizza. We eat the same caterer, the same order every Friday for the last 15 years I worked at this company. All I want is a piece of pizza. I thought that was such an interesting example because here's someone who had relegated himself, even though he was high open, to having a very structured, routine corporate life. But all he wanted was a tiny bit of newness, just using a different caterer after 15 years of eating the same lunch. The opposite happens with a low open person. So our preservers, our low open people, become difficult when they're forced into newness. When they're forced to try something new that they don't want to do. So if you're a preserver and you really like having a routine and tradition, you become difficult and you procrastinate and you don't want to do stuff. You become a negative Nancy or a downer. If you're being forced to do new projects all the time, forced new ideas upon you, and people are changing things up all the time. It's really hard, for example, for low opens to be in high changing companies, in startups or venture-backed companies, because things are constantly changing and their newness, their openness is constantly being irritated. So here's the question. Are you accidentally challenging your zombie's openness? Are you doing something that's maybe forcing them into a routine they don't like or forcing them into newness they don't like? That might be accidentally causing them to be more difficult. And the more proactive question here, which is what I want to think about, is how can you begin to optimize for their level of openness? If you had to optimize their natural wiring, what could you do? And here's some ideas. So if you have a low open person, whenever you are approaching them, whenever you're pitching them, you always want to start with what isn't changing. For example, you might have a really low open client and you have such a hard time with this client. They never reply to your emails. They're always really slow. They're always difficult. They never have good feedback. If they're low open, they're terrified on every phone call and every meeting that you're going to change something up on them. They are terrified that something new is going to come their way. And so they dig in. They get super rigid and super stuck. With them, you would want to pitch them saying, hey, here's what's not changing. You have the same software, same login, same schedule, same timing. The only small little thing that's changing is this piece of the software. That way, you're lowering their fear about a lot of newness or openness, but you're not minimizing the fact that you have this or you are minimizing the fact that you have this tiny change. What's also important here is if you're going to have change with a low open person, always tell them why it's worthwhile. Have social proof and data and case points. The worst thing for a low open person is when you force them to change without really good reason. That's when people get really resentful. So what you would say is, hey, here are all the things that aren't changing and this little tiny thing that is changing, but here's why it's really important. We know from case study this is going to increase your bottom line by X amount. We know that all of our previous clients have loved this change, and we're going to help you every single step of the way. That's going to make a low open person much more open to talking about it and having the change, and you can try to honor their routines as much as possible. Make your preservers honor guards. Make them the ones who are doing the agenda every time. Make them the ones who are always doing the morning routine or throwing the lunch party. They love being preservers, and you want to let them honor it. Those are just some ideas for how you could optimize. How about high opens? So some ideas for your high open people. Give them any kind of small moments of new. Is there anything you can do that's new? As small as changing up the caterer, or letting them choose a new caterer, or letting them choose a different place for happy hour, or letting them choose a new project that you could try. You also want to make sure they are not your routine people. High opens should never be the ones who are trying to keep routine. What happens is if you make a high open person the one who sets the agenda every single day or who does all the routines, they're going to resent the routines. They're going to do them late or not as well. And they're also going to make sure that they are making it known that they don't like it. So they become more negative. They become more downers. Leverage them as explorers. If you have something new, have them go research it. Have them go try it. So here's what I want you to do. Think of at least one way that you could optimize for their openness. Here's just a couple of ideas. So maybe try putting them as lead on some sort of change that you have, a new software change, new project change. Ask them to start a new committee at the office. Could that scratch their openness itch? Ask them if there's a new thing that you're thinking about, can they do all the research on it? All we're doing here is trying to think of ways that you could optimize that natural wiring. Okay, so I want you to think of one idea. Now, for some of you, you might be like, that's not an area that's tickling them. It might be something else. So let's go to the next one. So here is the next one. So conscientiousness is how you approach planning. So high conscientious people love details. They love steps and schedules and lists. They're super focused. I am a high conscientious person. I love lists. On my desk right now, I have 3 different lists going. Not because I have to, just because I love them. I just love lists. I have this productivity book and this productivity book and this productivity book. I have so many of them because I love lists. I love alphabetizing. I love scheduling. I love agendas. I put things on my list just for the pleasure of checking them off. I love details. Your low conscientious people are flexible. They hate details. They like big ideas. They prefer much more to be easygoing. They don't want to be boxed in by their schedule. And this is where it gets interesting. Your high conscientious people become difficult when they don't have structure. When I hop on a call without an agenda, I feel panicked. I like to have agenda. I like to have a schedule. I don't want to be loosey-goosey and easygoing. For example, I have very organized slides for all my classes and webinars because that makes me feel in control. Whereas my low conscientious people become difficult when they are boxed in by too many details. They feel overwhelmed by the details. They feel like they're unnecessary. And they become more rigid when they feel like there's too many details placed upon them. This is especially important when you're pitching new projects or new ideas with colleagues or clients. Let's say, for example, you are high conscientious and you have a low conscientious client. You send them a proposal with 15 different bullet points. You have a PDF, you have highlights, you have next steps, you have phases, you have charts, you have graphs. It's glorious, right? Tons of details. Your low conscientious client gets that and goes, whoo, this is a long email. Archive. And that's because they feel like it's just too much. I know this for a fact because I have someone I work with, and I think he's probably listening right now, who is much more low conscientious than me. And so I have a new idea for a project, and I send him an 8-page email of all the different ideas. And that sits in his inbox and sits in his inbox and sits in his inbox because he's like, oh, it's just so long. What I would be better off doing is thinking about, okay, I have this new project. I think he's going to like it. How can I optimize for his level of conscientiousness? So we'll start with low. First, I could send him an email that says, hey, here's the bottom line for this project. 1-sentence description. Here are the 3 things you need to know about this project and think about doing. And I just have one question for you. Reply to this email with that one question. If you want more details, read below. When I started to do that with his emails, I got faster responses. He was happier with the project. He was still able to skim the details, but he was able to write back really quickly with the answer to the one question and the top level ideas. That helped me optimize for his conscientiousness because I was able to get a faster response without caging him in for the details. So if you have a low conscientious person, can you outsource or export their conscientiousness? Give them a software or a tool to outsource their conscientiousness. Can you let them go with the flow? So if you don't need an agenda, don't add an agenda. If you don't need all the details, don't give all the details. And if you give details, make them optional. Here's the top line, and if you want more details, you could read below, but you could just stick with this if you want to. On the high side, so if you have a high conscientious person, leverage it. Let them run the agendas. Let them come up with the schedules. Let them run the details. I had a CEO that I was working with, and he had a very difficult person on his team. And this was someone on his high-level executive team. He could not get rid of them. He said, I know this person is super smart, but they are so awful in meetings. They're constantly asking irrelevant questions. They're constantly, demoralizing people's ideas. This is a guy, he was not being a good team player. He's like, I don't know what to do. He's super smart, but he's terrible during meetings. So we had him do his little personality matrix and found out that he was super high conscientious. And I said, are you giving him any kind of conscientious tasks during these meetings? And he said, well, we do have my assistant who takes notes during the meetings and sends the notes out afterwards, but we don't have anyone taking notes or doing an agenda during the actual meeting. So the CEO decided to ask him to take notes on the whiteboard behind the meeting as it was going on. A, this allowed him to take part in the meeting in a very detailed way. B, it allowed him to take notes in a very organized way by creating the outline, and that helped the assistant send out better notes. And it had him pour his high conscientious energy into a project that was actually helpful. He became much more helpful in the meetings. He had much better ideas. He was supportive of people. He felt ownership of the meetings. He came to meetings early to be able to set up for his note-taking and whiteboarding. And that is because the lack of agenda or details around the meetings was driving him crazy. He couldn't have said that, but that's what was happening. And giving him a way to exercise that high conscientiousness made him a better meeting participant. So can you ask your high conscious people to plan, take notes, run projects? Let them scratch that itch. Here's your diode. So I want you to begin to fill this out for the C. If you're not sure, if you're like, I don't know how this person is on their conscientious level, very easy fix. We created a free quiz for you to give them. So one of the most fun team projects you can do is send out this personality quiz. Tell them, hey, I've been doing this personality science. It's really interesting. Take this free quiz. It's 44 questions. And then have everyone share their matrix on your team. It's a very, very interesting way to get to know your team better. I highly encourage every single team do this. Every time I hire someone, every time I bring someone to the Science People team, I always make them do this matrix so I know exactly where they fall on that matrix. So send them this personality test and see if you can do it together so you both know each other's personality. And by the way, this link is up forever, so you're welcome to use it whenever you want. The whole reason I created it was so that you could use it as much as you want. Take it as much as you want, share it as much as you want. I wanted everyone to have it as whenever they needed it. All right, let's talk about extroversion. So we've done O and C, we're on E. Extroversion, you probably know about this. I call extroversion the cool girl of personality, and that's because everyone knows about extroversion. It's how you approach people. So you might remember low extroverts are called introverts. They typically chat less. They use less words in the average day. They love a quiet workspace, like to brainstorm. They can do social time, but they like to prepare for it. They don't like to have drop-bys at the office. And they're usually observers. They want to observe the situation before they take part. Highs are extroverts. So our extroverts are cheerleaders. They love big open office space. They love teams. They love being in the thick of the socializing. They love to stop by offices and have people stop by their office. And if you're somewhere in the middle, you're an ambivert, which means you can flip between the two. Here's what happens. Introverts become difficult when they are overwhelmed, drained, and exhausted by people. If they feel like they've had too much people time, that makes them more difficult. It makes them shut down even more. Extroverts become difficult when they are lonely, unheard, or do not have that sense of belonging. When extroverts don't get enough social time, they don't get enough face time, they don't get enough people time, they shut down and become rigid and defensive and unhappy. So what's interesting about both of these is both introverts and extroverts will shut down when they don't get what they need, but they both need very different things. So if you're practicing the golden rule, you're an extrovert trying to give introvert lots of people time, lots of face time, because after all, that's what you would want. And the introvert is like, oh, just leave me be. And so you're both becoming more difficult because you're giving the other person the golden rule, what you would want, not what they would want. So again, how can you optimize for their level of extroversion? Here are some ideas. So if you have a high extrovert, let them be the cheerleader. Give them that cheerleader role. They need more frequent in-person check-ins. Let them corral teams and schmooze VIPs. They're great networkers. They're great at talking to clients before meetings. They're great at going to conferences. Let them do this in their role. That's what they should do because that helps them feel like they're exercising that people muscle. Lows. So your lows, they're able to do creative time and social time, but you want to give them prep time. So if you have an introvert in your office and you have a big collaborative teamwork brainstorm session, you're better off sending them the question ahead of time, letting them think about it and present when they're ready. So prep them, give them downtime. If they're going to have social time, make sure they know that that's scheduled social time. Never pop by, call in. And if you can, ask yourself, what's their preferred way to communicate? Do they prefer in person? Do they like email better? I try to make sure I know each person on my team's preferred method of communication. Some of my teammates like chat way more than others. Other people hate chat. They like email and in-person only. So if you can, find out what their preferred mode is. So at least when you're going to go approach them, you know that they're in your favorite mode. Let's talk about agreeableness. I want to make sure I get through all of them because I know that we're going on the time. So agreeableness is how you approach teamwork. This is one of the more tricky personality traits, one that we haven't heard of. So a low agreeable person is called a challenger. They're analytical. They constantly want unbiased opinions and research. Typically, a low agreeable person is going to default to no. When you ask them a question, they can seem like Debbie Downers because they're like, let me think about that. Let me do my own research. Let me see what I think. Whereas a high agreeable person is the opposite. They're super people pleasers. They're very good at team building. They're very good at win-wins. They love cooperation. But the problem is they have opposite, both of these personality traits have opposite difficulties. A low agreeable person becomes difficult if you don't give them time to do their own research. If you force them to opinion or don't give them enough data or research, they become very difficult because they feel like, I didn't get to challenge this. I didn't get to think through all the options. A high agreeable person becomes difficult if you enable their people pleasing. Here's what I mean by this. A high agreeable person says yes to everything. They really want to make you happy. And so if you ask them, hey, can you do this task? They'll say yes. Hey, can you do that task? Sure. Hey, can you do that task? Yeah, I think so. And by the end of it, they've said yes to everything without thinking, do I have enough time for that? Do I really have the skill to do that? Should I really be doing that? And so what happens with high agreeable people is you're accidentally enabling their people pleasing and they sign up for way too much. That's why they can become late on deadlines. That's why they cannot come through on their word. It's not because they're trying to shirk responsibility. It's because they've just said yes to too much because they want to people please. So again, I want you to think about how can you optimize for their level of agreeableness? Here's some ideas. So if you have a high agreeable person, let them say no. Say, you know what? It's totally fine if you don't want to do this project. I have a backup. You also want to be sure to not over ask. Don't push their boundaries. High agreeable people have a really hard time setting their own boundaries. So the nicest thing you can do for them, the way that you can honor their agreeableness, is by making sure that you're honoring their boundaries for them. You also don't want to force them to quick decisions. Whenever I have high agreeable people, I have a high agreeable friend. And what happens is whenever I ask her if she wants to do something later in the week or later in the month, she always says yes. And then she always cancels on me that day. Every single time. So now I'll say to her, hey, I was thinking about going hiking next weekend. I'm going to text you the times and you can think about if you want to go. Then I text her the next day. She thinks about the times. And then usually she cancels on me less because she's had time to think about it before actually just saying yes right off the cuff. So make sure you give them time before forcing them to quick decisions. Low agreeable people. So low agreeable people, they're wonderful for research. They're wonderful for being very good strategically. You have to let them research. You have to also sometimes teach them teamwork. Sometimes low agreeable people can be called intimidating. That's because they just want to get it done. They're very into efficiency, they're very into productivity, and they're very decisive. So as much as possible, leverage their decisiveness, let them research, and let them be that strategy person ahead of time because they're going to put in all the research they possibly can. You want to leverage that as much as possible. Last one. This is my favorite of all the personality traits is neuroticism. This is how you approach worry. So what's interesting about neuroticism is there's been some research on neuroticism that looked at high neurotics physiologically. And they found that high neurotics carry long forms of a gene called the serotonin transport gene. Now, very simplified, serotonin is the chemical that makes us feel calm. So what happens is neurotics produce less serotonin overall and also transport it through their body more slowly. This means that they have a greater response to negative events. Let me give you an example. Let's say that I'm in the car. I'm a high neurotic, full disclosure, high neurotic, and I'm in the car with a low neurotic. And we're driving down the street, and someone almost hits our car. Whew, whew, close. I take a deep breath. I go, wow, that was a close one. My low neurotic goes, wow, that was a close one. And in our bodies, both of us are producing adrenaline and cortisol. We're stressed from that almost accident. In my low neurotic's body, he begins to produce lots of serotonin. Serotonin tells his nervous system, we're all good. Calm down. No more adrenaline. Take a deep breath. Everything's fine. My body also begins to produce serotonin, but much more slowly. So the low neurotic, 2 minutes later, whoop, doesn't even remember the accident. Totally fine, talking about the day. Where me as the high neurotic, I'm like still shaky. I'm like, oh my God, I can't believe that happened. I'm like still out of sorts from it. And that is because physiologically speaking, I actually produce less of the hormone I need to calm down. It comes eventually, but I have a much stronger response to that almost accident than my low neurotic. This is why all my low neurotics listening, it drives you crazy when you have a worrier in your life. You say things like, it'll all be fine. Don't worry about it. It'll all work out. And your high neurotic is like, no, it won't. What about this? What about that? And that's because we also experience negative emotions more strongly. So of course, we're going to worry about them more. The reason I share this is because non-worriers often get frustrated with worriers because they think to themselves, can you just get over it already? And worriers get frustrated with non-worriers because we think, how are you not worrying about this? Right? Sound familiar? So here's what happens. Our high neurotics, like me, we are more reactive. We get more negative response from our environment. We worry. We have higher anxiety. We like to think through every possible option that could go wrong and prepare for it. Our low neurotics are resilient. They're stable. They're much more hands-off. They don't have a lot of mood changes or mood shifts. And they feel like, oh, worrying, what a waste of time. Neurotics feel that worrying is an investment in failure prevention. The more they worry, the less likely a bad thing will happen. And low neurotics feel that worry is a waste of time. And that is a fundamental difference. Hopefully this is giving you aha moments on this one. Here's what happens. Our high neurotics become difficult when they're afraid. Afraid something bad's going to happen. Afraid something's going to go wrong. Afraid they're going to have a negative experience. And my low neurotics become difficult when they don't understand why everyone is so worried. Can everyone just calm down? Oh, that worry is annoying. And this becomes the fundamental problem. So when you have a high neurotic and a low neurotic on a team, there can be a lot of clashing. However, you actually want to have both a high and low neurotic on a team. Here's why. Your high neurotics worry about everything that could possibly happen and then make sure to prepare and plan to prevent a crisis. Your low neurotics are amazing once a crisis actually happens. They're stable, they're calm, they can think clearly. So you actually want both. You want the person, the low neurotic, who's great in a crisis, but you also want the high neurotic who's going to prevent the crisis from happening in the first place. And this is the fundamental problem with difficult people at work. You want a team that has both a high and low neurotic, but high and low neurotics also aggravate each other's personality, and so they can get into each other's way. The key here is how can you optimize for neuroticism so it actually works for you. If you have a low neurotic, they are your rock. Make sure they're the ones leading in a crisis. They're the ones calming clients down. They're great forward facing. They're super calm. Your high neurotics, and this is the only slide that has any questions on it. For any high neurotic you work with, you need to find out the answers to the following 3 questions. First, how do they worry? Do you have a high neurotic who's a verbalizer? They want to talk through everything. You want to give them that talking time because that's going to help them feel calmer. Or do they worry by shutting down, hibernating, keeping everything in, not letting everything out? If that's the case, you want to give them time to hibernate and process before coming out. You also want to know, how do they self-calm? How do they feel better? Do they have to talk to people and share with people to feel better? Or do they have to have some alone time to feel better? And lastly, when they're in a state of worry, what can you do to help? How can you help? I would highly recommend asking them these questions. I think you should know this about every single person on your team. And by the way, if you have a low neurotic, they'll be like, I don't really know how I worry. I've never thought about it. And if you have a high neurotic, they're like, oh, let me tell you how I worry. So first, I go through the pros and cons. And second, right, they have a whole list for it. So that's the difference between a high and low neurotic. All right, at this point, we've done so much material. You should have your entire matrix filled out. High, medium, or low. If you're unsure, be sure to give them the test. You also want to think of 1 to 3 strategies you could do today to optimize for their personality. So just a couple of ideas. Maybe if you want to optimize for their C, their conscientiousness, you could set them up on a task software. Export that conscientiousness. Maybe if you want to optimize for their extroversion, you can send those team discussions questions ahead of time. If they're an introvert, you can send them all the agendas ahead of time so they can prepare. That will make them better during meetings. Or maybe you want to optimize for their agreeableness. If they're high agreeable, you want to make sure that they don't say yes to too much, and so you allow them to wait 1 day before making any commitments. These are just a couple of ideas, but I want you to have at least 1 to 3 specific strategies you can do with that person. This is so incredibly powerful. I believe that difficult people cannot be changed, but they can be optimized. And that's better. Optimizing is better than change. You don't want to change who they are. You actually just want to take who they are and make them a little bit better. That's way easier. Optimizing behavior is so much easier than behavior change. And doing these seemingly small tasks is exactly how you have big results in optimizing their behavior. They feel more heard by you, more respected by you, and they also feel like, whew, I can actually be myself. Remember, everyone becomes difficult when they feel like they can't be themselves. So here's what we've done. We have absolutely done the understanding needs. All this personality framework is all about how to understand your coworkers. Now, there are 3 more levels. If you're building a relationship with your coworkers, understanding needs is the first one. The next 3 is predicting their behavior. So not just understanding what their behavior is, but actually predicting it ahead of time. Second level is increasing your influence, making sure that when you have an idea, they hear you, they respect you, they listen to who you are. And the last ultimate level is building rapport and loyalty. How do you make sure that you have a long-lasting relationship with them? When you do all these things, these 4 levels of relationships, you get the mores. And I love mores. So the next thing after how to deal with difficult people, we get questions about is how do I make more money with people skills? How do I get more respect with people skills? How do I get more success with people skills? How do I get more things done? How do I become more productive? I know the answer to more money, more respect, more success, and more productivity is leveling up master level people skills. And the science is very clear on this. Carnegie Institute of Technology looked at financial success, people who are financially successful. They found that 15% of someone's financial success was due to their technical ability, their skills, which is funny because when you think about making more money, what do you say? Go back to graduate school, get a technical degree, add a skill. What they actually found was that 85% of our financial success is due to people skills, like personality, like leadership. This webinar right now is going to have more of an impact on your bottom line and your performance review and your productivity than a class on computer skills. And that is because every single day, every single task, you're interacting with your coworkers. And the more smooth you can make those interactions, the more masterful you can make those interactions, the better those interactions are going to be. They also found that people with higher than average interpersonal intelligence make an average of $29,000 more per year. Imagine making just an extra $29,000 more per year and also having higher level people skills. In this way, I think that investing in your people skills is one of the fastest ways to making more money, getting more success, and having more respect. I know this because I've spent the last 12 years researching relationships, communication, body language, microexpressions, negotiation, all of the latest research on people skills. We have a database of over 2,500 studies that we pull from to find the science-backed research behind those people skills. And I have bought every course, book, seminar, class, webinar that is out there. Over $200,000 I've invested just to see what people are teaching. And what I very quickly learned early on is that there was something missing. For some reason, I did not learn the communication skills I needed in school. And then after school, I invested all this time and all this money reading every book there was, trying to level up my people skills. And I could not find one resource for professionals to level up my interpersonal intelligence. That is why I created People School. I know a lot of you have been waiting this whole class for me to open up People School, and I'm about to open up enrollment to our next class. I want to explain why People School is the answer for professionals who are looking to level up their success. So People School is a 12-step advanced virtual program with the most advanced people skills for high-achieving professionals. We built this for people who want to succeed more at work. So not just dating, not just friends, which it will help you with those things too, but this is specifically science-backed skills for professionals. Everything is virtual. So it's a 12-week program, but all of the videos last forever. We have live office hours. We have People School coaches who respond to your assignments and challenges. It is the single best virtual people skills experience that I've ever seen. It's the one thing that I wished I had had when I was in school. Let me go into a little bit more about how this works. I know that honing your interpersonal skills is the single fastest way to achieve your goals. What I have learned is that people who are lacking one of those 12 people skills, the reason I chose those 12 is because if you are missing just one of them, you have slower growth at work, less productivity, more difficult people in your life. If you had more than one zombie written down in your life, it means you probably are lacking in one of those 12 people skills. You have a difficult time building rapport. You have a difficult time pitching yourself. You have a difficult time building your influence. So I know that interpersonal skills is the fastest track to your goals. What my goal is to give you a fast way to level up your success. I want to give you specific strategies and tools to be able to tackle those different areas of your people skills. So here's how it works, the basics. First, you get an amazing 150-page workbook. This is all your exercises and templates. You actually get a physical copy in the mail as well as a digital copy. We'd like you to have both. It includes all of my favorite people skills toolboxes. So conversation blueprints. We give you elevator pitch formulas. If you've ever worried, how do I answer the question, what do you do? We actually have an entire skill on your logline answering exactly what you do. We have interaction roadmaps, goal worksheets, charisma quiz. We have tons of fun stuff as well. Science people stuff is never boring. We have trivia and games and warm-ups. That workbook is jam-packed. Companies buy this social skills workbook from us for $3,000, just the workbook. So the workbook is included in People Skills, but we have People School, but we have companies who just buy this workbook for $3,000. The biggest part of the program is not actually the workbook. It's the 12 video training modules. These are each of the skills. The way that I do it is each skill is broken up into 3 areas. First, the science, mind-blowing, incredible science. Second is a framework based on that science. Science is good, but what if you don't know how to use it? So a framework for how you can use it in your professional life. And then lastly, we turn that into strategies, actionable case studies and strategies that will help you understand how to integrate that skill into your life. This is the exact training, the exact skills that I've taught at Fortune 500 companies around the world. Intel, LinkedIn, Google. I was a spokesperson for Dove. I've spoken at Symantec and Kaiser. These are the exact same skills that I am teaching to very, very high levels at these Fortune 500 companies. And that is because high achieving people know that people skills is just as important, if not more important than their technical skills. When I do a corporate training, they start at $15,000. For a 1-hour corporate training, if I go into your company, it's $15,000 for 1 hour. You actually get 12 hours because each of those modules is at least 60 minutes. Some of them are even a little bit longer. So you actually end up getting way more than just 1 hour. But if I were to come into your company, just a 1-hour training would be at $15,000. I want to talk about a couple of different kinds of students. Who takes People School? So we have 3 different kinds of students at People School. You have entrepreneurs, intrapreneurs, and pivoters. So by the way, here's some pictures of some of our students as well as a couple of the companies where our students come from. So we have students from all over. So our entrepreneur students run their own companies. A lot of them are coaches, consultants. They're running their own companies, small to mid-level. We also have intrapreneurs, where our next biggest bucket are people who are killing it in their job. They're either new managers or new hires. We have some C-suite executives. They are really wanting to advance quickly and with loyalty at their company. They don't want to just get ahead. They actually want to build connections and build a better impact. So it's another huge group of People School students. And the last one, a smaller group, is our pivoters. These are students who are somewhere in between. Maybe they have a side hustle. Maybe they're thinking about trying something new. Usually they're using People School as a kind of a reset. So a way to think about what their next steps in their career are. Their stories are always the most exciting. So here's the thing that you do when you first get into People School. When you first get into People School, you have a specific goal that you want to achieve with People School. Our number one goal is that we help you achieve your goal using people skills. So if you have a financial goal, here's a couple of examples. So if you have a financial goal or a client goal or a networking goal, our goal is to show you how you can use people skills to get any of your career goals. We believe that people skills is an incredibly dynamic set of tools that no matter what your career goals are, we can help you achieve them. So here's just a couple of examples I pulled from our students: land 3 new clients, ask for a 20% raise, add 100 high quality network contacts to my network, set up a weekly lunch. These are all different kinds of goal examples from our students. In fact, and we get success emails all the time. This is an email I got today from one of our People School students. So we also follow up with you after the program to check in on your goal. So here's what she wrote. This is from Dana. Dear Vanessa and team, I want to share with you some good news. Since I joined People School and I started working on implementing all the much appreciated lessons, I'd like to share with you that after being passed up for a promotion last year, I was invited to be a member of the executive team. Thanks to all of your important information, the way it's structured, I find it easier to understand why I was passed up for the promotion in the first place. Worked on building my credibility and was pleasantly surprised that I have received double the bonus. Thank you so much for your tips, Vanessa. I will keep you posted with my progress. So she was passed up for promotion, didn't know why, took People School, realized, I know exactly why, changed it by upping her credibility with some of our tools, and then got invited to the executive team and got a double bonus. That is my goal. I want you to send me emails like this. We are now getting emails like this weekly from our People School students, and that's what I want for you as well. I want to show you how people skills can be an unexpected way for you to achieve your goal. We also have tons of live office hours. This is where I answer your question. I do teaching. I do case studies. I also give you lots of feedback on your elevator pitches, on your progress. We do group coaching, and we also have 13 optional assignments for you to implement everything you're learning in People School. I don't even do coaching anymore. So I used to do coaching, and then I decided I only wanted to coach students in People School. I think that People School is so fundamental that I will not do any coaching unless you've taken People School. So I don't do coaching. The only coaching that I do is by doing office hours with my People School students. When I used to coach, it was $500 per hour. Now I do all that with People School students, and you will get multiple hours of coaching with me through all of our live office hours. There are so many testimonials I can give you from People School students. If you go to the enrollment page in a second, which I'm going to open up, you can watch videos from each of our students on their success. Got the job, $30,000 more per year. For the first time in years, I got a review that said I'm exceeding expectations. I've been able to close all 5 of my offers this week, 100% close rate. I can see in people's eyes when I speak to them now that they're actually listening. I want you to feel this way. I want you to get your goals. I want you to feel like you're achieving what you want. I want you to feel like you have influence with the people you want to have influence with. These are just a few of those testimonials that we have. We also give you free access to People Lab. So one of the great bonuses of People School is that you get 12 free months of People Lab where you can practice, meet other students. It's a way I wanted to make sure you had a place to practice your skills. So if you weren't ready to practice them in real life, you could use People Lab to meet other students, practice icebreakers. We have tutorials in there. We even have a segment we do every month that's called Today I Learned, where we post new research on communication and relationships. So you also get 12 months free of People Lab so you can just practice your skills that you're learning. You have 2 choices. You absolutely can use the skills from this training and keep on keeping on. I gave you a great framework that should give you tons to do with your difficult people. You could also DIY all of our free people skills. We have tons on YouTube. What I want you to consider is taking a step-by-step science-based approach to your people skills. It's hard to just patch some things together, to learn from a book here, a video there. I want to give you a step-by-step framework for systematically improving your people skills. I also want to teach you a science-backed approach. This is not just my opinion. It's not just, oh, smile more or be more authentic. It's what does the research say about using people skills to be more successful? And that's a very different way of thinking about people skills. And then lastly, I built the program to be a reset button. So many of our students come in feeling like they're not getting the success they deserve. They're not getting the respect they deserve. They feel like they're in a funk or a rut, or they have tons of difficult people in their life. I want People School to be your reset. I want to completely change the way you see your relationships. I want you to feel like there was before People School and after. So the question is, what would that end result be worth to you? If you were to cobble together all those different things for just an hour, it would be $18,859 if I was going into a company. I'm not going to charge you my corporate price, of course. So our tuition for People School is $1,495. That is all inclusive. It never expires. You get the video forever. And the best part is you have a 30-day money-back guarantee. You don't like it, you come in, you're like, not for me. No problem. We want you to feel like it's amazing. We want you to come in and be like, yes, this is exactly what I was looking for. So it's all inclusive. It never expires. Here are all the things that tuition includes: the modules, the workbook, the live office hours, People School coaches, People Lab, group coaching, access to new modules. And I don't even have time right now to talk about all the bonuses. Woo, we have some good bonuses. I filmed an entire video bonus on getting your raise or raising your rates, exactly how to do that step by step. Cold approaching people at networking events, finding your people. I have pre-event meditations. What happens is during office hours, you submit questions to me, and if I think that I can make a video bonus for you, I actually go and create a lesson. So I am constantly adding in all kinds of bonuses for you into People School. It is our flagship product, so I am constantly adding new lessons. You also get a certificate of completion in the mail. You get some surprises in the mail too. And give you an action plan and goal follow-up. So after the program, after you're done, we give you all kinds of resources afterwards that you can keep going with all the learning. We also are going to be adding lifetime bonuses. Get buy-in here. So if you have an education budget at your company, or you want to use this as a business expense for your company, if you're an entrepreneur, go get buy-in, tell your boss. And this is a really exciting one: if you refer a colleague, we love it when you take People School with a colleague. That just helps you both learn together. We will give you both 20% off. So if you have a colleague you want to take it with, you both get 20% off, which is a great discount. Here is your decision. I would love to be your reset button. I would love to help you level up your goals. I would love to help you achieve your relationship goals. I really believe that a science-backed framework is the way to do it. I know I've seen students go through the program and be completely transformed. I would love to do that for you. I'm opening it up now, sciencespeople.com/enroll. I cannot wait to meet you. I'll be waiting on the other end with your very first assignment. Every day I check all my People School science, all my People School assignments. I would love to meet you. I'd love to help you with your goals. And thank you so much for watching this class.